Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. A lot of you have been asking about this, so we're really excited to dig into this today.
Yeah.
It's all about raising kids with a strong Christian faith, in this crazy digital world that we're living in these days.
Right.
We'll be taking a look at this book by Jacques Dubois, Éduquer les enfants à la foi dans un monde numérique,
Okay.
which for those of you who don't speak French means educating children in faith in a digital world. So,
Yeah, a really important topic. And this book tackles it head on with,
yeah.
I think, a lot of really practical advice and examples, too.
Yeah, I was really impressed with how many real world example
Yeah.
it had.
Mm-hmm.
Like actual families using
Yeah.
these tips and tricks. And I mean, think about it. Social media, AI, all this stuff didn't even exist a generation ago. And it's just
Yeah, it's a whole new world.
it's a whole new world. And it can feel really overwhelming for parents, trying to navigate all of that. But the research actually shows that, it's not an impossible mission.
No.
There are families out there who are thriving
Yeah.
in this new landscape, and they're using things like, family Bible nights and faith-sharing challenges online, and even workshops to help kids spot misinformation.
Exactly.
It was really interesting to see all the different approaches.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me was how much the research emphasizes just understanding how much things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Like how drastic the shift in media has been. I mean, think about it. We went from a world where TV was like the main event to one where kids have smartphones like practically glued to their hands.
Oh, yeah.
It's constant, and it's a whole different ballgame in terms of information overload.
Absolutely. And one of the things the book digs into is this idea of social media being like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can be great for kids to, connect and build community. But on the flip side, it can also be a breeding ground for comparison cyberbullying, that constant pressure to seek validation.
Right, and the research really gets into the psychology of that,
Mm-hmm.
that constant comparison, validation seeking, and how it can actually hinder a child's ability to develop a strong sense of self-worth that's rooted in their faith.
Wow. Yeah, it's like you're constantly being bombarded with these images of what you're supposed to be,
Yeah.
how you're supposed to look, what you're supposed to have. And it makes it so much harder to figure out who you actually are.
Exactly. And then on top of that,
Yeah.
you layer the influence of AI.
Oh, yeah. AI.
It's not just about what kids see online, but how algorithms are shaping their values and worldview without them even realizing it.
That is a little scary. It's like this invisible force that's kind of
Yeah.
shaping their perceptions of the world.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the research points out that AI can filter the information we're exposed to and kind of lead us down these certain paths and reinforce certain viewpoints without us even being aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for kids who are still developing their critical thinking skills, that can be really impactful.
So what can we do about it? I mean, we can't just, shut off technology completely, can we?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
The research really emphasizes that it's not about demonizing technology,
Right.
but about being intentional and proactive about it.
Okay.
Equipping kids with the tools they need to navigate this digital landscape
Mm-hmm.
in a healthy and faith-filled way.
Okay, so let's talk about some practical tips because I know that's what everyone's really
Yeah.
wanting to hear about. And the book mentions this idea of Bible study at home.
Mm-hmm.
And they highlight this one family, the Martins,
Oh, yeah.
who have this tradition of having a Bible night where they gather together, read scriptures, have these really open discussions. What stood out to you about that approach?
It's interesting because the research actually found that these consistent family religious practices,
Okay.
like the Martin's Bible Night,
Mm-hmm.
can have a really significant impact on a child's faith development.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about the content of what's being discussed, but also about the shared experience,
Yeah.
the ritual, the sense of connection that it fosters.
It's like creating this space where faith becomes a natural part of family life,
That's right.
not just something you do on Sundays.
Exactly. And the research also found that, these practices can be really powerful in helping kids internalize their faith
Mm-hmm.
and make it their own.
Yeah, make it real for them. And, it's not just about structured Bible study, right? The book also talks about this other family, the Dupas,
Yeah.
who start each meal with a prayer of gratitude.
Oh, I love that example.
It's so simple.
It is such a great example of how simple everyday practices can be so meaningful.
Yeah.
The research suggests that, by incorporating gratitude into those daily routines, families can help kids develop a more positive outlook and a deeper appreciation for the blessings in their lives.
It's like weaving faith into the fabric of their everyday experiences.
Exactly. And, it's not just about traditional practices,
Yeah.
they cite. The research also encourages parents to embrace technology
Ooh.
as a tool for faith formation,
Okay.
you know?
That's interesting.
So they mentioned the Lefebvre family, who use this interactive Bible app
Okay.
with games and quizzes to make learning about their faith fun and engaging for their kids.
Yeah, I love that because it just shows that faith doesn't have to be like dry or boring.
Right.
It can be exciting and interactive, especially when you leverage technology in creative ways.
Exactly.
So we've talked about laying that foundation of faith at home.
Mm-hmm.
But what about when kids venture out into that wider digital world, especially social media?
Right.
What are some tips for helping them navigate that space? Because it can be pretty treacherous out there.
It can be. Yeah, one of the key things that the research emphasizes is open communication. It's about creating that safe space for kids to talk about their experiences online, both good and bad.
Like the Bernard family in the book.
Yeah.
They make it a point to have regular discussions with their kids about the potential dangers of social media, things like cyberbullying, misinformation.
Yeah.
And by talking about it openly, they're creating this space where their kids feel comfortable coming to them if they encounter something disturbing or if they need help.
Exactly. And the research shows that open communication can be a really powerful protective factor for kids.
Mm-hmm.
It helps them develop those critical thinking skills,
Yeah.
makes them more aware of potential risks, and gives them the confidence to speak up if something feels wrong.
It's not just about protecting them from the negative stuff.
Right.
The book also talks about encouraging those positive interactions online.
Yes. One example they highlight is the Thomas family,
Okay.
whose kids found this really supportive Christian online community
Mm-hmm.
where they could connect with others who share their faith.
It's like finding your tribe, a place where you feel understood and accepted and where you can explore your faith without feeling judged.
Exactly. And the research found that these online communities can be really valuable for young people, especially those who might not have like a strong faith community in their offline lives.
That's a good point. Yeah, another thing that really struck me was this idea of empowering kids to share their own faith online.
Yes.
They mentioned the Ricard family who created this faith sharing challenge
I love that.
where everyone posts, a Bible verse or a spiritual reflection each week.
Yeah. And what's so interesting about that example is that it goes beyond just passively consuming content online.
Mm.
It encourages kids to be active participants, to share their own beliefs and values in a positive and authentic way.
And that brings us to another big topic that the book dives into AI. And I have to admit, this one kind of blows my mind sometimes.
Me too.
It's amazing, but also a little terrifying.
I know what you mean. AI is evolving so rapidly.
Yeah.
It's raising all sorts of ethical and philosophical questions that we're still grappling with even as adults.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we even begin to approach this with our kids?
That's a great question, and one that we'll continue to explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Yes, definitely.
We'll be talking about how to equip kids with those critical thinking skills they need to evaluate information online,
Mm-hmm.
how to have those meaningful conversations about the ethical implications of AI,
Right.
and how to help them develop a moral compass to guide their choices in a world where technology is becoming, increasingly intertwined with every aspect of our lives.
It's essential.
Yeah, and we'll continue to draw on the insights and practical advice from Éduquer les enfants à la foi dans un monde numérique to help you navigate this complex and ever-changing landscape with confidence and purpose.
Absolutely. It's a great resource.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We're talking about how to raise kids with a strong faith in this digital world. And last time we really got into some of the foundational things like the importance of family faith practices and building that strong base at home.
Yeah, establishing those roots is so crucial.
It is, but, today I want to get into some of the more practical strategies for dealing with some of the specific challenges of the digital age.
Yeah, like how do we actually equip our kids to navigate this world?
Exactly. And one of the things that Éduquer les enfants à la foi dans un monde numérique really emphasizes is this idea of media discernment,
Right.
which I think is so crucial. It's not just about limiting screen time.
Mm-hmm.
It's about helping kids develop those critical thinking skills so that they can evaluate the messages they're encountering online.
It's about giving them the tools to be savvy consumers of media.
Exactly, because let's face it, the internet is like a vast ocean. There's so much good stuff out there.
Oh, yeah, amazing things to discover.
But there's also a lot of junk and some pretty dangerous currents, too.
Exactly. And just like we wouldn't let our kids swim in the ocean without teaching them about those currents or how to spot hazards.
Right.
We can't just send them out into the digital world unprepared.
That's such a good analogy. So how do we equip them? You know, the book offers some pretty concrete strategies, right?
Yeah, they do. One that I really like is this idea of co-viewing.
Co-view.
Instead of just letting kids watch videos or browse websites on their own, parents join in.
Oh, that's interesting.
It becomes this shared experience where you can talk about what you're seeing, ask questions, really dig into the message behind the content.
So it's like turning screen time into a learning opportunity.
Exactly. You know,
Okay.
asking those probing questions. What's the message here? Who made this and why is this a reliable source? It helps kids start to think critically about the information they're consuming,
That's so smart. You're like training their mental muscles to recognize bias and misinformation.
which is so important in today's world.
It really is. And the book also talks about this idea of creating a media mission statement as a family.
Oh, I love that.
You know, you sit down together, you discuss your values, your goals when it comes to technology. How can you use it in a way that aligns with your faith and your family's priorities?
It's a great way to get everyone on the same page.
It is, and it gives kids a voice, too. You know, it helps them understand why these boundaries are important.
And it's not just about what they consume, but also what they create and share online.
Right.
The book talks about encouraging kids to engage in positive and meaningful ways.
So instead of just scrolling and liking, they could be creating content that reflects their values.
Exactly. They give this example of a family who challenged their kids to make a short video about what their faith means to them and share it on social media.
That's awesome. It's like taking back that digital space and using it to express themselves in a positive way.
Right. It's about helping them see the potential of technology to do good, not just the risks.
And speaking of using technology for good, the book also talks about how online platforms can be these amazing tools for spiritual growth and community building,
Oh, absolutely.
which I think sometimes gets lost in all the talk about the dangers of technology. We forget about the incredible opportunities it offers,
Right.
especially for people of faith.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are online Bible studies, virtual prayer groups, even interactive faith-based apps that offer guided meditations or reflections.
It's like a whole new world of resources for exploring and deepening your faith.
And it's not just about individual growth either. The book talks about how online platforms can be powerful tools for mobilizing young people around social justice causes.
That's a good
They
point.
can connect with faith communities all over the world, learn from people with different perspectives.
It's like they can find their voice and use it to make a real difference in the world, all from behind a screen.
It's pretty amazing. But one crucial point the book makes is that all of this, the media discernment, the positive engagement,
Right.
the using technology for good, it all starts with us
With us
as parents and mentors.
You mean walking the walk, not just talking the talk?
Exactly. We can talk all day long about being mindful of screen time or engaging in a respectful dialogue online. But if we're constantly glued to our phones or engaging in negative behaviors ourselves, our kids will see right through it.
Actions speak louder than words. We have to be the role models.
The book calls it modeling. And they emphasize how powerful it can be if kids see us living out our faith in our digital lives, being intentional about how we use technology. It sends a much stronger message than any lecture we could give.
It's about authenticity. Kids can spot a fake a mile away.
Exactly. And it's not about being perfect. We're all going to make mistakes.
Of course.
It's about being honest with ourselves and with our kids about the challenges and then striving to do better.
And this brings up a really interesting question that the book poses. What does it even mean to have faith in a digital age?
Right. It's not just about clinging to traditional practices or rejecting technology altogether.
So how do they answer that?
Well, they talk about embracing this idea of digital discipleship.
Digital discipleship. Okay.
It's about seeing technology not as a threat to faith, but as a tool that can actually help us deepen our faith, connect with others, and live out our calling in the world.
So it's about adapting and evolving, finding ways to integrate our faith into this new landscape.
Exactly. It's about being open to new possibilities, experimenting with different approaches, and recognizing that faith isn't static. It's a journey that continues to unfold in each generation.
And speaking of journeys, we're about to embark on the final leg of ours as we delve into some of the specific challenges and opportunities related to social media AI and the constantly evolving digital landscape.
It's going to be a fascinating conversation, so stay tuned as we continue to unpack the wisdom and guidance of éduquer les enfants à la fois dans un monde numérique and figure out how to raise our kids to be thoughtful, faithful digital citizens.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive, and I'm ready to tackle some of these like really specific challenges we've been talking around.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Like social media and AI, these are the things I know parents are like really struggling with.
For sure. And Éduquer les enfants à la fois dans un monde numérique really gets into some of those potential pitfalls, but it also gives some really solid advice on how to handle them.
Okay, let's start with social media. I mean, it's almost unavoidable these days, right? But it feels like such a minefield.
It can be. Yeah, one of the big things the book talks about is how social media can just feed this need for constant validation.
Oh, yeah.
Creates this cycle of comparison where kids are always measuring themselves against others.
Yeah.
And it can be so damaging. Anxiety, depression, even a warped sense of self-worth.
Yeah, it's like their value gets tied to likes and followers instead of, something deeper.
Exactly, and that's where faith can play such a key role. The book really stresses how important it is to help kids understand their inherent value as children of God.
Right.
A value that can't be measured by, any social media metric.
It's so important, but it's got to be hard to get that across when they're seeing all these perfect images all the time.
Totally. Yeah. It's an ongoing thing, but the book does have some practical tips. One that I found helpful is encouraging kids to be really mindful of who they follow and what content they're actually taking in.
So like cleaning up their feed, unfollowing accounts that make them feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. Taking control of their online environment, making sure it's filled with things that are uplifting and inspiring, not stuff that makes them feel less than.
It's like weeding a garden, getting rid of the toxic stuff so the good stuff can grow.
I love that. And it's not just about what they consume, it's what they share, too. The book talks about teaching kids to think before they post, to consider how their words and pictures might affect other people.
So that digital responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
What you put out there has real consequences. And, a lot of this comes down to us, again, modeling that behavior.
Yeah, walking the walk.
If we're constantly on our phones, comparing ourselves, getting into arguments online, our kids are going to see that.
It all goes back to that.
It does. We have to be intentional about creating a culture of respect and kindness online and offline.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about AI, because this one is like, whoa.
I know, right?
It's so amazing what it can do, but there's that whole other side of like, wait a minute.
So many ethical questions.
It's big time.
And the book really gets in that it acknowledges all the good things AI can do, but it also says we need to be cautious, approach it with a critical eye, especially when it comes to our kids.
So where do we even begin with that?
Well, they suggest just starting with open conversations about the ethical side of AI. Talk about things like bias in algorithms, data privacy, how AI might affect jobs, society as a whole.
Help them understand that AI isn't neutral.
Right. It's made by people, so it has all our baggage built in.
And we need to give them the tools to see that, to analyze those biases, even advocate for responsible AI development.
Exactly. And to figure out their own moral compass for dealing with AI. What values are most important to them? How do they make sure their use of AI lines up with their faith?
Wow, those are some deep questions.
Yeah, they are. And the book really encourages parents to check out some of the resources out there that can help, books, articles, documentaries, podcasts, all sorts of stuff to help us wrestle with these big issues.
It's a good reminder that faith isn't just about what happens on Sunday morning.
Right. It's about how we live in the world. And that world includes all this technology.
And I love that the book doesn't just focus on the negative. It really ends on a note of hope.
Yeah, they talk about how the digital age does come with challenges, but it also creates incredible opportunities.
It does. We can connect with people across the globe, learn new things, share our faith in creative ways, even use technology to make the world a better place.
Exactly. Instead of being afraid of it, let's be excited by the possibilities and equip ourselves and our kids to navigate it, with wisdom, with courage, and with a strong faith to guide us.
I love that. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive, I want to leave you with this one last thought. What kind of digital legacy are we creating, not just for ourselves, but for the generations coming after us?
That is a powerful question.
It really makes you think, let's shape this digital world into something that reflects our values, something that creates a better future for everyone. Thanks for joining us on this journey. It's been great having you along, and we hope you found it helpful